Welcome to the About podcast. Here we explore your financial health in simple and easy to understand ways.
All right, well, welcome everybody to the About podcast, a very special About podcast about the About podcast. My name is Jeremy Scott, one of your hosts here, joined ably by Roy Hookie. Roy?
What a tongue twister of an intro.
I know, I just couldn't resist. It just
all about
the About.
All
podcast. About the About podcast. Well, I think the only way to start us off is for you to explain where it is that we are, because for our listeners, whom I know are loyal listeners / watchers of this podcast, might wonder, we're not where we normally are.
No.
But we are where we will normally be.
Yes, so this is our initiation of the space,
yes,
if you will. This is actually our new podcasting studio, which is in the Credentialed Wealth offices in downtown Johnstown, Colorado.
Yes, it is. It is quite a place. Quite literally, we were waiting on this table, which Roy had custom made and looks gorgeous in person.
Yes, a local woodsman. I don't know. I don't really call him. But Bryant Bahama, he actually made this table. He's a local fellow here out of Johnstown Milliken community, and it was delivered last week.
Yeah. I love how much we probably just need to do at least like maybe we need like a short format for the podcast where we can just like run through the building and let people see all the hard work that you've done, because it's very impressive what's been done here. The thing that's impressed me is how much you've used local people.
Yes.
Craftsmen, tradesmen, whoever, to do all the work around here.
Absolutely.
And it is quite a place. So we are excited. We have all new technical equipment. We didn't bring anything over from the old studio because that all belongs to the church. So we left, that left it there, so I can still record my personal stuff or my church stuff over there, which is great.
Yep.
But we spent a couple days setting up all this new equipment and everything, and that's had the idea that maybe the thing to do for this episode is to say, what are we do? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is a podcast? How do you do a podcast, and how does it work? And what are the kind of the behind the scenes?
I think we should give
insights.
our listeners a little bit of a background, because I don't know if we've ever talked about it in public. Maybe we've mentioned it, but let's talk about it a little bit. Like, how did we even come to do this?
Right.
And we talked about why we wanted to do it, but we didn't actually talk about how it kind of happened. So since we're in our new space, we thought it'd be really cool just kind of give the listeners a little bit of background knowledge about, what the heck it is we're doing and why we're doing it. How did this even happen? So, you're a pastor.
Yep.
And you had to maneuver through COVID. So we started the podcast. We started recording the podcast in March of 2024.
March of 20. Really? Was it that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we recorded for about 3 months.
Mostly audio.
Before we
experimented a little with video.
Yep. Before we actually started releasing anything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the time frame when it started. But the reason that's important is because you just come out of, what for a church having to deal with one of the most unique things in the history of the world, the COVID, mess. And you had to pivot as a pastor to figure out how to run everything through video and be able to deliver content.
Yeah, it changed everything. I mean, it changed everything for a while, and it really hasn't ever gone back. But we were actually already invested in newer ways of communicating. So at the church, we were already live streaming worship. It was more for like our shut-ins, or there was one use case where we had a woman who was undergoing very intensive cancer treatments, so she couldn't come to worship because there's just too many people, and that was sort of our excuse to get into live streaming. So we were already doing some live streaming. It wasn't a priority, but we already had stuff there. And we were doing a little bit of podcasting. I was doing a midweek podcast that was kind of a follow-up from the worship, whatever the sermon was. And it was really, honestly, everything that made the cutting room floor for, whatever, when I was doing my sermon prep. So we were doing that, and it was, so we had kind of the basic equipment around to do those sorts of things when, the world kind of shifted on its axis rather dramatically on us. And then, suddenly, live streaming was the only way people were accessing worship, and I was recording sermons, instead of giving them live. And suddenly the popularity of the podcast shot through the roof because people were home and starved of a little bit of content and interaction and everything. So then we started to really build out our capacity, and I needed to build a dedicated recording space in the church. I'd been kind of doing it impromptu style wherever I could. So I took over a small Sunday school classroom, literally draped moving blankets along the wall to kind of dampen the sound down a little bit, which worked surprisingly well. But I still had boxes of moving blankets from moving, to Johnstown about a year and a half before. And we just kind of set up all the equipment, and then over time, built it up, to be a fairly, reasonable, setup, based mostly around Rode products. So the first generation of Rodecaster, which was kind of this really unique all-in-one podcasting solution that recorded your audio, multiple tracks of audio, multiple microphones, that kind of stuff, and then gave you a very simplified platform for it. Interestingly, COVID happened at a time when there was just generally a lot of interest in things like podcasting and stuff like that. So these products were starting to come out onto the market, and we very wisely got out there and snapped them up early, because once people figured out that COVID wasn't going anywhere anytime soon and that we were all going to be stuck in this a while, there was a time where you couldn't even buy them because they were all gone.
Get them. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had the space, and then, so we'd had done that mostly for church stuff and everything. But for me, it was always an eye towards this should also be a community resource, because the church is a community resource, right? We love having groups come in and use our space and, host meetings there, or, whatever. So when I set up, I said, this is always meant to be not just for us, because, the nice thing about modern recording and digital world, there's no consumables, right? You're not like using up film. Or anything like that. So as long as you're willing to bring your own SD card, I don't care if you plug into my equipment and, record something or whatever. And I'd put that offer out there a number of times to different people, but never really got any takers until, you and I had a conversation, and I was just like, oh, why? Well, what do you want to do, Roy?
Well, here's how it went in my head anyways. Okay. So this is my recollection of it, right?
So I didn't realize we get to compare notes.
Well, it's just, you never know. Sometimes our stories don't match. But ultimately, it was, I'd been thinking about doing a podcast for a while. I actually like taking in content through podcasts. It's easier for me than actually sitting down and reading, because I can do it when I'm working out or taking a walk or driving. And that's when I kind of consume the most content. So I'm like, I'd really like to do something like a value add kind of podcast. And we were at a men's group, actually. I don't know if you remember that. And we were talking about, just on the side, just chatting, I think. And I just said, I really want to do a podcast. She's like, well, I know how to do it. Yeah. Why don't we just do it together? Yeah. And I was like, that's a great idea. Let's just do it. Yeah. And so for me, I didn't know how to do it. And that was a step that I needed to be able to just let's just do it. Yeah. I know somebody that can actually push the buttons to make it work. So what's holding me back now? And I just said, let's do it.
Right.
And I think that's the hardest thing, is that people just have to start. Yeah. Like, you can look at our videos, and we didn't know everything from day one. We got some really bad ones in regards to our video and our sound. And it's just learning, though. We can't help that. That's part of life.
Yeah. Some of the early ones were interesting.
But that's kind of the fun arc of anything. Like, you're exploring and learning and growing, and our listeners get to see that with us. And you look at the number one podcast in the world, and they had one at one point that was awful. Yeah, right. They learned how to do it over time.
Absolutely.
So with your laying the table of the actual devices that were being used at the church, right, with Rode. This is still going to be a financial podcast. We're still going to talk about some financial stuff, everybody. Yeah. And the Rode brand has only gotten better.
Oh yeah.
They've released newer versions of their supplies and their material and their boards and all that good stuff. And that's actually what we're using, everybody, is Rodecaster and Rode products. And you just put it together yesterday.
I did.
What was the experience?
So it was great, but I want to put one more thing out there in the whole setup and the setting the table thing, which I think the other thing that really helped is you and I are both consumers of podcasts. Yeah. I listen to a lot. It is literally a joke in my house where somebody will mention something weirdly esoteric, and I'd be like, I actually heard a podcast about that. I was literally listening to a podcast on the way here about Bastille Day. Do you know anything about Bastille Day?
I know of it.
I knew very little. It's apparently July 14th, which is not far from when we're recording this. Yeah. But and part of that is like it shows up in sermons and things like that. But I just really enjoy the format. But it also means I've consumed a lot of it. and including, kind of the two people talking format. There's a couple I listen to that are that format. And so I think for any time anybody is thinking about doing something, whether it's a podcast or writing a book or whatever it is, it's really helpful if you are a consumer of whatever it is before you try to become a producer of it, right? So I think you and I both had this. We didn't talk a lot about the format of it. Like we both knew it was like, well, it's going to be us talking about whatever the subject is. And then eventually when we added guests, it's like, we're going to have guests that we're going to interview. And you and I have probably listened to enough two people interviewing somebody or one, that format to go, okay, I already know what that is. We don't even need to talk about it.
Yep.
So I think that's the big piece. People, if part of the point is if you're at home and you're interested, like maybe I want to start a podcast. Well, first thing, listen to podcasts, enjoy the format.
Well, and we did really just start talking.
Yeah.
And just see what worked and what didn't.
Yeah.
And for our, I guess, benefit, we didn't really have much that didn't work.
No.
So we got kind of lucky in that regard.
We did.
But I also think we also went in with a loose outline of our thoughts. Like I'm the expert, you're the layman, and you ask questions from the point of view of you don't understand all the content. Right. So it's actually a really good balance, because if it was just me talking as an expert, I wouldn't maybe be able to think of the questions that you would think of.
That's the piece that I've really enjoyed is having that kind of, I get to be the layman, kind of, I get to play the role of the audience. Hopefully thinking about like, if I was in the audience, what would I have a question about?
Yeah.
Unfortunately I'm learning a lot while I'm doing this. So I have to remind myself that I'm actually not supposed to know half the stuff that I now know.
I know I had to remind you of some content we talked about the other day.
Yeah, well, you did. I don't remember it all. Come on, man. So back to the setup. So the nice thing about kind of keeping it all within one family is all this stuff is designed to work together. So putting together the new Rodecaster Pro 2, which is the newer version of the one that we have been using at the church. They've definitely made some improvements on it, but it works, fairly similar to how it did before. They've fixed a few things, added a few bells and whistles that those of us who have been using it for a while are glad to see that they have. And that takes care of all the audio side. And then there's a video side. And in the interim, I was using a separate product from a separate manufacturer for the video side because that's who made it. The Rode didn't have a product at the time I was buying equipment that fit that need. Well, now they do. And the two work pretty well together. So when I came over here yesterday and I'm like, okay, we got our Rode mics hooked into our Rode cables with our Rode headphones, in the, Rodecaster audio and the Rodecaster video product. And it was just like follow along. And I watched two 90-second YouTube videos just to figure out which one of the 5 different USB ports on the back to use, because one was better than the other. And then that was about it.
And it worked pretty good.
Just
so everybody knows, it sounds really good to us. So hopefully it sounds good to you as well.
Yeah. I can hear a couple things I'm going to want to tweak, but that's okay.
That's good.
Yeah. So really the only unknowns were these cameras, because that's the one thing. Rode doesn't make cameras. So I actually had a couple of these 2 cameras sitting on a shelf. So I'm not sure these are going to be our permanent cameras or not, but they'll get us through this introductory session. We'll see how it goes. But the quality looks good. And I did a little test recording and it all looked good. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to keep it like within the family of products, because it all knows how to talk to itself.
So going forward, we're going to have this set up here in the office. We're actually in the conference room, and that's where we're going to be recording from going forward. And honestly, I love the church. And it was awesome to start there.
Yeah.
But the church is busy.
It is.
And it's hard to record there sometimes. So this will be actually really helpful to have our own location and make other media content as well for clients. And
Absolutely. Well, and that's the goal, is like, you've got enough, like we have enough sophistication that we can have, 4 different people sitting around this table if we want to, with microphones and, all that kind of stuff if you want to do it. Or if you just want to pull out, a mic and a camera because you want to record a little something, probably shorter form or whatever. Yep. Very, very, very straightforward to do that as well, which is great.
So for our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey, number one.
Yes, absolutely.
But number 2 is like, let's talk a little bit about what does it take to actually do a podcast, right? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, it just takes the fact that you have to have the willingness to do it,
right,
and figure it out. So even if I didn't had met you, I would have had to take that step forward into a realm that I wasn't fully comfortable with.
Sure.
And that's the first step. So by knowing you, it actually made it a little bit easier for me.
Yeah.
But still, you have to take that step, and then you have to buy the equipment, right?
Yeah.
So you have the expense of buying the equipment. You don't have to buy the best equipment in the world. Like we had decent equipment at the church and we have decent equipment at the church, but it's not like the top of the line.
No.
But it has a great product.
Yeah.
Like there's no issues with the product we were putting out, in my opinion.
No.
And a lot of the feedback I got from other people that have been listening is the same.
Yeah. Well, you would be surprised how many professional podcasts, with millions and millions of listeners are recorded in random hotel rooms and stuff with equipment that people literally like carry around in their backpack.
Yeah.
And some of it is this exact stuff.
Yeah. So the equipment expense, you got to have a place to do it. Ideally, it has some decent sound ability within that space. And we might have to tweak our space here a little bit too.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes over time.
But the nice thing is too there, I mean, not to interrupt, but I mean, the microphones and the equipment are getting really good at compensating for it because everybody has a similar issue. Some rooms are a little echoey or whatever. There's more and more, just little subtle tweaks that makes a good room sound great, without as much work.
Yeah. I think we need to add a cough button.
Need a remote. Boop. Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess from the equipment side of things, right, then we have to talk about editing.
Yep.
So a lot of that's time. That's a time cost because if you don't know how to do it, it's going to take you some time to learn it.
Right.
Or it is an hourly cost of some sort when you have to pay somebody to do that.
Right.
Right. So you're the expert in that area for us. I tried to do it one time and it was a disaster. I spent like an afternoon on one teeny little thing.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I mean, obviously one thing we did, again, I mean, I already had a pretty decent amount of editing skills and then, you get into COVID and then we were just editing everything all the time. I mean, it was all we were doing. So you learn the efficiencies of it. And that's really what you're paying for. If you pay somebody to do it, you're paying for their expertise and their efficiency. Yep. And it can look like, if you even watch them do it, you're like, oh, I could do that until you've got to try to do it yourself. And then you realize, it's a lot harder than I think it is. And again, it depends on what you're doing and how much you want to do. If you're audio only, and not a lot of podcasts are, but there still are some. There's still a lot of podcasts that are audio only. If you're audio only, that's obviously a little bit easier. It's a little less to worry about. The files are a lot smaller, that kind of stuff. When you start to add in the audio and the video,
syncing words to lips, right?
Syncing words to lips is a thing. It's especially at the church, especially because we had one piece of equipment recording the video and one piece of equipment recording the different tracks of audio. And that's one of those things that we picked up over time. Realized we want to record an independent recording of my microphone and your microphone and the guest microphone because the guests never get the microphone close enough to them.
Yes.
Right. So you always have to up the volume on the guest, but you don't want to up it on everybody. Yep. Right. So you want to be able to it's things like that add complication to it and time to it if you really are worried about getting a quality product. You could just hit record. If you wanted to, and then take the recording and put it out there.
Well, and there's people on YouTube that do that, and you could just tell it sounds like they're in a hole, right?
Right, it can.
And those videos can have, hundreds of thousands of views. So
it can. I think one of the things, and there are more. I mean, I don't want to say shortcuts, but there are more efficiencies to be gained, especially with the equipment that we have. So, that little intro music that you hear at the beginning of the podcast, we're not hearing live. I add that in later. But the podcaster, the roadcaster, could store those audio files, and I could push a button, and it would, play that for us to hear and build it into the recording and all that, and I could save that step later just to simplify things. And I tend to do that in the church recordings because I want the turnaround time to be faster. Here, we're investing a little more time and energy. We want it edited a little bit better, so we don't do that. But there are some things that can make the editing less if you've got, somebody there. The other thing we don't have is it's just like Roy and I sitting here. There's nobody running the buttons.
Yeah, we got to push those buttons.
I got to push the record and then walk around. Which is fine. But that's another way you can do it. If you tweak it in the mode, then there's less editing to do later. But you have to have a third person who knows how to run the equipment. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah. So cost-wise equipment, cost-wise a space to do it, cost-wise the fortitude to be able to push yourself forward and learn something new. Yep. If you don't know how to do it, a new skill, or you have to pay somebody to do the editing in regards to that.
Yeah.
From there, the other cost that you have involved with something like this for us, business-wise, is we actually do have a marketing arm that, pushes it out on our social media, and there's a cost for us for that.
Yep.
But then at the end of the day, it's just, how much time and how much effort do you want to put behind that cost, right? Because you could spend a lot of money, or we how much is enough?
Right.
Let's just get it out there so people can listen to it and try and find us, right?
Yeah.
And it takes time to gain steam, and our tens of listeners are
tens, dozens. What are you talking about? Well, and the one thing that's interesting now is that depending on how you want to push content out, the like hosting and those sorts of costs have come down dramatically to nay free if you, depending on how you want to do it.
Yeah, you're right.
But YouTube now has, special playlists, specifically for podcasts. And you can set up, within your YouTube channel, you can set up a playlist and say this playlist is a podcast. And then you can, throw all your episodes up on there. If you want kind of what you call real podcast hosting and everything like that, you're usually going to pay a little bit for it, a month for that. And it's because of and the reason why, and people often wonder, like, why do I have to pay? It's because, even the audio file version of something, those files are rather big. And if you're a popular podcast, that's a lot of, basically a lot of megabytes that you're pushing out. Yep. So there's always going to be a little bit of cost to that, but it's remarkably small, for what you're getting, as far as that goes. So there is upfront costs, what you might, like capital costs inventing the equipment, but once you've got the equipment, you've got the equipment.
Yeah.
Like this stuff's not
we shouldn't replace this for years and years.
No,
and
years and years and years and years. Your running cost is not as bad as it would be because the hosting is so much less and everything. Yeah. And so much of that is optional. You can learn to do the editing and then, and try to, and start off simple and then make it more complex over time if you want. You can, if you are a business and you want to market, then you may want to pay for that, but chances are you're paying for marketing anyway. So this is just another, channel out there. But there aren't nearly as many expenses as there used to be when you'd have to pay a website host to set up a web, and all that kind of stuff. That's fairly standard right now. And in fact, like any of the major platforms, if your website for your business runs on Wix or Squarespace, or WordPress, there are already systems built into that to host and distribute the audio version of your podcast for you that you're already paying for. That's not going to cost you anything extra to set up and make available.
Yep. And that's a good point that you said, though, because that is a cost I have is the website.
Yeah.
Just to have one, you have to pay for the domain and all that stuff. But it's still minimal. But we still have one at the aboutpodcast.com. We do. Right? It completely exists and it's bona fide. HTTPS.
Ooh.
So we have that. And then, we do host it. We use a program called Acast.
Acast, yeah.
So it actually links up all of the different places you can listen to podcasts.
Yeah. Acast.
So there's a fee for that as well.
Yeah, Acast is the industry leader.
It's very minimal fee, though.
It's very minimal and all that kind of stuff. And then, you register, you have to register with iTunes and Spotify and all that kind of stuff if you want to show up in the search for, in those places. You can do that. I mean, technically any podcast player can just take the feed directly from it if that's what you want, but you want to be registered. But there really isn't any cost association from doing that registering. So there's no reason not to.
Yeah. Just make it bona fide so they know you're real.
Yeah. It just takes a little time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's really the beginning and the end of like why and how this actually occurred. And, we've evolved from a church, Sunday school room that you hijacked, I guess, right, during the COVID years.
Oh, it's mine now. I'm not giving it back.
It is. And it's actually quite the setup, by the way.
It is.
I mean, you got lighting and backdrops and all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, and even things like the lighting is a little, I'm really impressed because I haven't tweaked any settings on these cameras. We haven't tweaked anything about the lighting. I'm just like, I just want to see what it looks like. And it doesn't look bad.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
The modern smart cameras is they're able to compensate. They kind of know what things should look like, and they tweak it to make it look like that. So it's not even that expense is not what it used to be.
Yeah, and it's not as cumbersome to have setting up all these lights all around here and make it really hot in here, and like they did back in the day.
Yeah. Well, thankfully the lights are all LED now, so they're not very hot.
Not very hot, anyways.
Yeah.
This actually TV is warmer This is actually TV behind us, everybody. But
yeah,
it puts actually some decent heat.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah.
So for you as a business owner, what would you say is like, I know for me, this is just like, I enjoy doing it. And, as a community member and everything like that, I feel like it's part of my role to be out in the world and helping and doing all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's just more the enjoyment factor of getting to do it and getting out there and getting to mention the church every once in a while and things like that. Like that's really about it. But for a business, but I'm also not spending my money. Right. Like, I didn't buy any of this. You bought this. Like all the fun stuff that I just got done playing with, I didn't have to buy.
He did donate his time, people. I don't pay him to sit here and talk.
Yeah. But I mean, so for you, like what like the business case, cause it's not one thing, it's not a quick turnaround.
No, I mean, so, I committed to the concept of, in my mind, the concept of, I know it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And my goal is not to become like a huge podcaster. My goal is actually to become almost a library reference where people can, if you search for, we've done a myriad of content about a lot of things. And, if you have a question around Medicaid in Colorado, right, we have a podcast on that.
Right.
And it's a resource that people can actually go to when they need it. And I understand what we talk about is not like the most exciting stuff that, people are just going to grab a hold of and share it with everybody. Right? But when you need this information, I think it's really important. And the goal is to be value add.
Right.
So if we can have a decently sized, reach so that we can help people who need the help when they need it, that's really my goal. And part of it too is I have a lot of people that ask me the same questions.
Yeah.
So for me, it actually also helps free me up because I say, hey, listen to my podcast on that. I actually talk all about that.
Right.
And then they can listen to it at their leisure, at their time, 10 o'clock at night, 5 a.m. in the morning when they're working out, whatever. And they can get the content they need when they need it. Yeah. And that I just think it's a really cool medium to be able to deliver value that I can now leverage and reach. It's kind of like the pebble in the pond, right? You create a ripple, and now that ripple is going to affect more people. You may not even meet a lot of these people that ever listen to this and get some value out of it, but it's still going to make an impact, hopefully in a positive way.
Right.
So that it can help them make some good decisions financially along the way that they maybe wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Right. Yeah, I think that one of the things about, I think it happens in podcasting, it happens in YouTube and all those kind of places, is there's this fixation on the the people with the millions of views, and they think that's the only use case or the business case for those platforms, but it's not. There's a role for the hundreds of views if it's the right hundreds of people, right? Or even the dozens of views if it's the right dozens of people. So if it adds value to your clients, if it saves you time with them, or maybe inspires them to ask a question they weren't going to ask, gets them in a better, product for them or whatever it is. I think that's there's a lot of value there. To you as an individual that needs to be calculated. And even if it doesn't show up in, a high view count, so be it. When we've alluded to the fact on this one that I haven't posted there in quite a while, but I have a little very niche YouTube channel that doesn't receive a lot of overall views, but because it's named at a fairly narrow segment, basically people interested in church live streaming technology, which is not a huge group of people. But for those people, it's valuable. So I get a lot of comments and I get questions from them and I'm able to answer and engage, and it's answering questions and everything else. So for them, there's value there. It's not ever going to be
hundreds of thousands of
views. Yeah. It's never going to
make. But it's still very fulfilling to be able to make a positive impact on those folks.
It is. And I enjoy doing it. And when I have time to put into it, I get to spend some time doing it. And it does not feel like wasted time, even if, it's not, something that's going to show up on, YouTube top 10 anytime soon. So I think that's the other piece people do is it's like, I'm always like, start with the end in mind. Like, what's the outcome? Where do you want to go with this? Like, what would you consider successful when you were done? And and we didn't really have that conversation, but it would have been a different, if you had said in the beginning, like, I want to start a podcast and I wanted to get 100,000 views or 100,000 listens every episode. I'm like, well, that's a different thing than, I want to deliver value to my clients and, maybe attract some new clients and give, and I think what we've grown into is now we are giving a platform to people who, the different guests that we've had. I think
and that's been a lot of fun. And that wasn't really the intention when we started this at all. But it was like, I had some content that I was like, this makes sense to bring a guest in on this. And it just kind of evolved from there. And I just keep running into people. I'm like, that'd be so cool to talk about.
Right.
I actually just had an appointment with somebody here before we did this podcast right now. And they're going to come in and talk about some content that I'll release here in the future.
Yeah.
But they're going to be a podcast guest.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's just fun. It's just fun. Honestly, that's also part of it. It's like, it's just fun.
Well, your profession is sort of similar to mine in that it touches a lot of other areas. Like it's a very the breadth is wide. So when we had the Medicaid expert on for Medicaid long-term care, that's very niche.
Shout out to Jennifer Hansen.
Shout out, she was great. But that's a very niche thing. I don't know that she needs her own, and maybe she could have one, but I don't know if she needs her own bi-weekly podcast.
Right, she totally
podcast.
does, yes.
And she probably could, just telling stories and everything. But just to give her that platform to share the basics with everybody, and now she's got something that she can share with her clients and say, hey, go listen, if you're interested in the basics of what this is, go here and do that. And we've done that for that, and the CPAs and the, real estate and commercial lending, all these things. I think that's something you're right, we didn't intend to, but we kind of stumbled into, which is good.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I've just really enjoyed learning about a new thing too.
Yeah.
But I truly think reaching more people, that I only have so much capacity.
Yeah.
And, that the part of that if I can help more people by being more efficient through something like this, that fills my cup.
Yeah.
I'll maybe never meet them, but it still fills my cup. And it makes me feel good that there's going to be people that maybe hear this one day and get some value out of it and enjoy it. Or maybe even people listen to this and like, I'm going to start a podcast.
There you go.
Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
Right.
It is the disconnected nature of it is a little interesting, because you realize, like, behind the, tens of views or whatever, like, no idea who those people are. I mean, some of them will I've had people, self-identify. Actually, I was talking to somebody, out in the community, and your name came up, because as it often does. And I was like, I was talking to Roy, like, oh, you know Roy Hookey? I'm like, of course, yes, I know Roy Hookey. And he's like, oh, I was just listening to his podcast the other day about blah, 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 blah.
Really?
And I had
That's
to sit
very
there,
cool.
and I was just like, yeah, I'm the co-host of that podcast with Roy. And they looked at me like, oh my God, you are. And I'm like, yeah, I was there.
Did they ask you for an autograph?
They did not.
No.
And I'm like, but that you don't know. And that's one of the things about this medium is you put stuff out there, and we run into this as a church now that everything's streaming and online and everything. People will come up that I've never met in my life, and they'll talk to me like they know me, because turns out they've listened to a half a dozen sermons or whatever, and they're just like, oh yeah, you said this one thing about your mom, and I'm like,
well, I'll be honest with you too. In the long run too, it takes time to get traction, but as we build out, the ability to have better and better content and the way that we deliver it, and it's also value add, because I've had somebody come in off the street before, and they'll maybe work with you or won't work with you because they don't even know you, right?
Right.
But if somebody actually finds us on a podcast and they're listening to us, they're like, I actually really like what they're talking about, and these guys are really smart, and I've listened to a few of their different, they've already decided they like you and they want to work with you if they call you.
Oh, yeah.
So that's actually a big part of the long-term, strategy, is that we're going to get some new clientele out of this, and people who value what we're delivering, and those people will make good clients because they match our values, right? But they've already been able to vet us without even having to talk to us, but they feel like they know us,
right?
And we've never met them before, right? Yeah. So that's actually a big part of it too. But it's like, even for you, when you're doing your podcast for the church, you're reaching out to people beyond the church, right? And some of those people will be like, yeah, I like Jeremy. And you're like, oh, I just met you.
Right. Right. Well, and for you, it's for in this world, I mean, it's just because when you're, it's not like you can live stream your client visits, because those are confidential and those are personal, and it's not like something that you can do. So it's hard to get a feel. So this gives people an opportunity to get a feel for somebody, their tone and their tenor and what they care about and who they are and everything, what their values are, and all of that. And in a way that you can't just looking at an ad or looking some up on Google.
Yep. Well, and I'll tell you, I actually used to do, and I might bring them back because I did enjoy them, but I used to do coffee clubs.
I do remember your coffee clubs. I kind of miss them.
You came to a couple.
I did.
And we talk about some sort of topic, right?
Yeah.
And I would usually do quite a bit of research and try to be really, prepared and be able to answer all types of different questions. But I would do 3 of the same presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the day, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot. And I used to be a teacher, by the way, and I used to teach math. And if you teach 3 or 4 algebra classes in one day, and you're teaching the same exact content, by the end of the day, you're just like, oh, you know, and that's kind of how it feels. So
it's
if
a triangle, get over it.
Right. If I do a podcast though, and I can do it one time and then people can listen to it when they want to, you know, that's the positive piece of that. But there's also a lot of my clients enjoyed seeing each other and they're like, Roy, when are you going to do those coffee clubs again? I really miss seeing, you know, X, Y, or Z person that I would bump into when I'd come to those things. So those in-person things are still fun though.
Yeah.
And I'll probably still continue to do those from time to time, but maybe not as regular as I was doing them before because we can get more information to more people more quickly through this medium than we can in person. And honestly, it's the longer in your business, the more, you know, your time kind of gets taken up. So this is a good leverage of time.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, well, I think it's fascinating and I hope people did too, or do too, and continue to watch. I mean, I will tell you that as I've been kind of watching things go by and listening to things, I'm like, oh, I got a little things to tweak here. We're going to tweak some stuff there. You know, but this is an exciting transition.
You were kind of like a little kid. I'm not gonna lie.
I had to apologize to one of your new folks here because I'm sitting here muttering to myself the whole time, and he happened to be in the room like, don't pay any attention to me while I'm muttering and all this. But it was a little bit like, but literally it was like every 5 seconds, like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's how that works. You know, and I mean, it's just the stuff today. I mean, it's just sometimes it's kid in a candy store. It's just what you can do today at the price point you can do is just like, oh my gosh. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, I'm sure they say this in their marketing material and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, even 10 years ago, say nothing about 15 years ago, you know, the cost to have like what this equipment can do, you know, would have easily stretched into $10,000, and it would have been multiple pieces of equipment that would have been a pain in the butt to try to get to work together.
Big and
clunky and all that kind of stuff.
You know, we're going to put all this on a cart, everybody, and we're going to put it into the storage room.
Yep.
And we're going to pull it out. And we're going to do that. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take out, you know, more than that space, you know.
Yeah.
So.
We're going to hopefully find something a little bit better than the 5 reams of paper that this particular camera here is setting on. But, you know, hey, that's what we
they never would have known.
The secrets. So, all right.
Well, thank you, Jeremy.
I'm looking forward to you know, dozens of more episodes and all of that. And if you would like to continue to see dozens of more episodes, at least of the About podcast, the best thing you do is like and subscribe and share it with your friends and your family, and especially if there's a topic in our catalog that it was, you know, interesting to you, chances are it's interesting to somebody else. And so please feel free to pass that along. And as always, reach out. You know, we're always interested in ideas for topics. You know, a lot of our best topics come from people or questions in real life that Roy gets through his work. So, you know, feel free to do that as well. It's really appreciated and helpful.
Thanks again, buddy.
All right. Thank you.
Until next time.
Absolutely.
CWA is a Securities and Exchange Registered Investment Advisor. No content contained herein should be construed as an offer for investment advice or an offer for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of low loss, including loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before implementing any strategy presented here. Data presented here are obtained from believed reliable sources but cannot be guaranteed as to completeness or accuracy.